Stay tuned to the end of the video to hear about Team Water and see how you can change someone's life for just $1. What's good, y'all? My name is Zach Young, and welcome back to Young Money Sports. And today, we have another episode of Was He Any Good? This is another rather infamous stint that y'all have asked for. Quick shoutouts to DesVT and Alan Hoover 11 for the recommendation. But without further ado, let's get into it. Kevin Garnett, one of the greatest power forwards of all time. He was a guy who would bring it on both ends of the floor with 110% intensity. Not to mention that he was one of the greatest trash talkers to ever step on the floor. He began his Hall of Fame career in 1995, being taken with the 5th pick by the Minnesota Timberwolves. What made KG stand out during this time was the fact that he was drafted straight out of high school, although that wasn't originally the plan. One of the main reasons that Garnett skipped college was because his test scores made him ineligible. But this lack of college experience wouldn't faze the big ticket, as he quickly became one of the league's best young stars. Under head coach Flip Saunders, KG and the once struggling Wolves would start to turn things around. They would make the playoffs every year from 1997 to 2004, but making it to the dance was normally as far as they would get. 2004 was the year that this team looked like they would finally break through. Garnett had his best year, being named the first MVP in franchise history. He had some noteworthy co-stars, with Sam Cassell, Wally Szczerbiak, and Latrell Sprewell all having great years. The Timberwolves won not one, but 2 playoff series, which was the first time they had ever made it past the first round. While they did fall to the Lakers in the conference finals, there was hope that they wouldn't be going anywhere anytime soon. However, a series of questionable decisions would leave their franchise player frustrated with the direction of the team. By 2007, Minnesota would start to listen to trade offers for the former MVP. And although KG was enticed by teams like the Lakers and Suns, it was the Boston Celtics who would land the big ticket. Here, he would team up with Ray Allen and Paul Pierce, and it wouldn't take long for these three to lift the Larry O'Brien trophy. KG was great in his first year with Boston, still averaging around 19-9 and being named the Defensive Player of the Year as well. He stepped up his game in the playoffs, and Boston took care of Kobe and the Lakers in 6. This is where we got this classic soundbite.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible!
I mentioned this before in my Ray Allen video, but Boston would certainly need to take advantage of every year with this core, as all 3 of them were already in their early 30s. This point would be emphasized in 2009, when a nearly 33-year-old Garnett suffered a knee injury that caused him to miss the playoffs. He was still playing well, and Boston was poised to win back-to-back titles, but that knee injury would be a major setback for Garnett and the Celtics. While he still played at an all-star level following this injury, it was still a step back from his production just a year prior. Boston would make another trip to the finals in 2010, but LA handed them a heartbreaking loss in Game 7. Things wouldn't get much better for the C's, as LeBron's decision to take his talents to South Beach made it pretty clear who would be running the East. The team who at one point had the Kings' number would never beat him in the playoffs again. To make matters worse, after a 7-game loss to Miami in the conference finals, Ray Allen decided to join the Miami Heat. The 2013 season would be KG's final season with the Celtics, and it was obvious to anyone who was watching that Boston needed to start over. Apparently, there were rumors of KG going to the Clippers with Doc in exchange for DeAndre Jordan, but Boston ultimately decided to send Garnett and Pierce to the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn also got Jason Terry in this deal. This is another trade with a laundry list of assets, but in short, the Nets received Garnett, Pierce, and Terry in exchange for an assortment of role players and, here's the big one, first-round picks in 2014, 2016, and 2018. Oh, and Boston could swap first with Brooklyn in 2017. Keep in mind that Pierce and Garnett were 35 and 37 at the time. This was the definition of a Hail Mary trade. The future be damned, we're winning a ring now. New owner Mikhail Prokhorov gave GM Billy King free reign to build a winner. Brooklyn originally just wanted Pierce, but they decided to add more to the deal with the promise of also landing Garnett. Looking at these quotes from King and Prokhorov is just funny and sad in hindsight. The basketball gods have smiled on the Nets. The Nets will be able to retool after Pierce and Garnett leave. I'd much rather be in this situation than the one we were in 3 years ago. My God. But I'm getting ahead of myself. And honestly, I can at least see the vision. Brooklyn had a good core to build around, and they didn't really lose any of that in this trade. Joe Johnson, Darren Williams, and Brook Lopez still had a lot in the tank, meaning that Garnett and Pierce wouldn't have to carry as much of the load. The Nets lost to the Bulls in round 1 of the 2013 playoffs, so bringing in 2 guys who have championship experience and are still playing alright seemed like a step in the right direction. As long as they could work well under Jason Kidd's system and the team remained healthy, Brooklyn could be a dark horse contender. Well, that plan went out the window as soon as the season started. Brooklyn failed to launch, starting the season with a 10-21 record. On top of that terrible start, Brook Lopez went down with a season-ending foot injury, forcing KG and rookie center Mason Plumlee to take over. By this point, you could tell that Garnett was cooked. His offensive game was almost non-existent. He started the year off by barely shooting 35% from the field, and it wasn't getting much better as the season continued. His main two sources of offense were through mid-range jumpers and finishing in the paint, and he could get neither shot to fall consistently. There was a point in the year where Brooklyn's offensive rating was nearly 10 points higher when he was on the bench. He would have a solid game every now and then, including his first game against the Celtics, but it was still a far cry from his previous All-Star campaign. The drop-off wasn't as bad defensively, as he was a little above league average in defensive rating. Part of the problem, along with Lopez's injury, could have been Brooklyn's offensive system. It was said to be more of a your turn, my turn kind of offense, just giving the ball to Johnson, Williams, or Pierce and letting them take the reins. Of course, KG was going to struggle in this system when his shots aren't falling. Guys weren't honoring his shot, and they weren't running as many plays to get him the ball. It's interesting that teams were trying to run this offense over 10 years ago, and we've seen in recent years how it almost never works. Garnett also started to deal with injuries once again. It began in November of 2013, when a sprained ankle caused him to miss a game. Nothing too crazy on the surface, but it couldn't have been easy for a 37-year-old player who had already dealt with various lower body injuries. After being a regular starter for the majority of the year, Garnett would be taken out long-term thanks to back spasms in March of 2014. He wouldn't come back for over a month, and his minutes would start to decrease. It was a shame that he went down like this, because it looked like he finally started to find his footing in January and February. He finished the 2014 season averaging a little over 6 points per game on 44% shooting. Brooklyn managed to bounce back from the early season slump, ending the season with a 44-38 record, good enough for 6th place in the East. One thing that stood out from this resurgence was the fact they actually swept the Miami Heat, showing that they could at least hang with the top teams. They would match up with the Toronto Raptors in the first round, and some thought that Jason Kidd's rotation and minutes could tighten up. However, not much changed in this regard, especially when it comes to Garnett. He'd only been playing around 20 to 22 minutes at the most throughout the season, only seeing a major increase directly after Lopez went down. He was still the starting center in this series, but he was still only out there for around 20 minutes a night, though he took full advantage of the time that he was on the floor. In the first 2 games, Brooklyn outscored the Raptors by 17 points while Garnett was playing, which was crazy considering how they played when he wasn't out there. He reached double figures 4 times in the series, including a 12-point, 11-rebound outing in Game 7. Overall, he averaged 8 points and 5 rebounds on 56% shooting, and the Nets won their first playoff series in 7 years. At least in the short term, the Garnett-Pierce experiment was already proving to be successful, and they would face off with an old friend in the second round. But the revenge tour would be cut short as Allen thoroughly outplayed his former co-stars. Garnett's numbers went back to what we saw in the regular season, and the Heat were able to dispatch of the Nets in 5 games. To twist the knife even more, Ray Allen played a key role in their demise, having plenty of clutch moments. So, this season was just a roller coaster ride. Sky-high expectations were quickly crushed, but they did manage to bounce back and win a playoff series, only to still not have enough to truly compete with the big boys. Unfortunately, this strange season would be as good as it would ever get for this Nets core. The first domino would fall in June, when head coach Jason Kidd was traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. Not long after, Brooklyn let Paul Pierce walk, and he would soon join the Washington Wizards. This was a huge hit for both the Nets and KG, as he would be playing without Pierce for the first time since 2007. Some questioned if he would even return to Brooklyn, but he ended up accepting his $12 million player option, fully understanding that the Nets were moving in a different direction. His play slightly improved in the 2015 season, and we got his best performance in a Nets uniform. He dropped 18 points and 14 rebounds in a November win against Detroit, but these wins wouldn't come very often. By February, the Nets were once again spiraling, and they decided to make another move. The big ticket's time in Brooklyn would come to an end at the 2015 trade deadline, when he was sent back to Minnesota in exchange for Thaddeus Young. He would spend the next 2 seasons with the Timberwolves, retiring after the 2016 season. Since then, he's had some success on TV and on YouTube, and he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2020. He also had a small role in the movie Uncut Gems. It's a great movie. Y'all should definitely check that out. But now, to answer the question, Kevin Garnett in Brooklyn, was he any good? In a vacuum, a guy who's pushing 40, averaging around 6 points in 20 minutes isn't horrible, but when you look at what Brooklyn gave up to get him and Pierce, it looks so much worse. That trade may end up being the worst trade in NBA history. Brooklyn did not know what to do after Pierce and Garnett left, and those picks just ended up becoming Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. 2 guys who ushered in a new era of winning basketball in Boston and led the Celtics to a championship. All Brooklyn got was 1 playoff series win and years of miserable basketball. So was there anything good from this run? Well, although his play had declined, he never lost his intensity. The dude still loved to trash talk and get in someone's face. He was also commended for being a good locker room leader, as he and Pierce tried to take charge whenever the team struggled. But still, that isn't nearly enough to justify what they gave up. The guy was still very washed, and there's a reason why this is used almost as much as that Celtics Shaq meme when talking about washed players. So, the answer is no. But what did you all think about Kevin Garnett in Brooklyn? Who else would you like to see on Was He Any Good? Let me know in the comments. And I have one more thing to talk about before we wrap things up today. Did you know that 1 in 10 people still don't have access to clean water? Crazy, right? A resource that we use freely every day is still sought out by millions. So how can we change this? That's where Team Water comes into play. This is a creator-led campaign that's partnered with WaterAid. It's led by Mr. Beast and Mark Rober, and many other large content creators that you all know are chipping in as well. All of us are looking to spread the word and give fresh water to millions of people that'll last them for decades. This is a campaign that's going to be going on all throughout August, and the goal is to hit $40 million. This is going to be enough money to provide water to 2 million people for years to come. And the best part is, you all can help out as well. For just $1, you can supply one person with a year's supply of fresh water. I put the link to this campaign in the comments and in the description so you all can both donate and learn more about the goal of this campaign. I believe that you all should also be able to donate on my Tiltify page, so I link that in the description as well. But it doesn't matter if it's just $1 or $10, or maybe if you just want to spread the word around to other people. Any support towards this campaign will certainly be appreciated.